Hi everyone, my name is Rada Hussein and I am a principal investigator at Ludwig Boltzmann Institute for Digital Health and Prevention in Salzburg, Austria. Today I will present our General Data Protection Regulation GDPR Toolkit for Digital Health. I will start my presentation with explaining the importance of GDPR compliance in digital health domain, then explaining our roadmap for GDPR implementation and compliance in digital health, with explaining the 4 categories of the created digital health toolkit, and providing an example for applying the toolkit during the development of the activity planning tool, and finally ending with discussion and conclusion. So, GDPR and digital health, and what's the current challenge that we face in digital health? The European Union GDPR entered into force in May 2018 with stricter fines for non-compliance and stronger mandate for providing more informed and explicit consent. GDPR compliance requires the implementation of many technical and organizational measures. On the other hand, the digital health domain deals with highly sensitive data such as medical data, wellness data, lifestyle, and behavior data. All of these types of data are considered as GDPR special category concerning health. So GDPR compliance is a very challenging process to follow up and to maintain the required and legal technical aspects, especially for digital health researchers and the startups. To address this big challenge, we created a roadmap for GDPR implementation and compliance in the digital health domain. We started with conducting a comprehensive literature review. We collected more than 300 documents covering GDPR compliance, best practices, and implementation guides in the health domain. After reviewing and evaluating these publications, we selected the relevant documents to the digital health domain and customized them according to the Austrian law with our data protection officer. In this way, we were able to create our GDPR toolkit. This slide summarizes the main steps for creating the roadmap. We started with creating a detailed review on the GDPR requirements and best practices in the digital health domain. Then, we created the LBI regulatory framework, or our GDPR toolkit for digital health, that specifies the institute policies, templates, and guidelines for the proper GDPR implementation. Finally, we created the GDPR compliance strategy, action plan, and the relevant GDPR compliance checklist. In the following 4 slides, I explain the 4 categories of the created GDPR toolkit in order to provide the staff of our institute with a clear understanding on how, what, when, where to use the toolkit and the relevant documents. We provided the toolkit in a form of questions and answers. The first category is for the GDPR awareness. It answers the main questions about what's GDPR, how to implement the GDPR in digital health, and where and how to learn more about the GDPR. The second category is for organizational compliance. How can the institute maintain the GDPR compliance and what's the required policies for this purpose? How do our partners comply with the GDPR and how to create data processing contracts with them? What are the available guidance that support our researcher in GDPR everyday practice? The third category is concerned with understanding the individual rights. How the institute data protection statement and policy deliver this message. How to obtain and maintain explicit informed consent of the users of our developed apps, how our user can access all the GDPR rights, and what are the required flowchart for that purpose. The fourth category is for the technical GDPR implementation while developing digital health apps. What should be considered by the digital health researcher and developers before starting a new study. How to design and develop a GDPR compliant digital health app. And finally, how to process the health data in accordance with the GDPR regulations. So our toolkit answers all of these questions with providing the required documents for each category. For example, as we see here, it's a sample of the created documents that indicates the purpose of this document, the document type, the description of the document, and the type of use, either internal or external document, and it's necessary to be published in our website or not. Provide a practical example. We utilize the GDPR toolkit while developing the APT tool, the activity planning tool, which is an application used by the cardiac rehab patients for planning their physical activities with their physicians. The toolkit was very helpful in integrating the GDPR technical requirements to the APT tool, in addition to creating the corresponding documents, such as compliance impact assessment, processing agreement, privacy policy, data flow charts, and compliance checklists. During the conception and ideation phase, the APT development team was able to have a better understanding of the GDPR requirements before developing the app. In the analysis and the prototyping phase, the team adopted the main GDPR concept in a perfect way. During the implementation phase, the team integrated the commercial GDPR APIs with better understanding. In the testing and evaluation phase, we created the GDPR evaluation report and compliance checklist. Then, in a regular basis, we check the data protection impact assessment of our app for any further updates. This slide shows how we implemented a visualized data types in the APT tool as a part of the app privacy statement. Using data types icons is an innovative way for ensuring informed consent, as our users now can be aware exactly which data will be processed by our app. In addition, the GDPR is highly considered in the APT sign process, as we see here in this slide, and how the patient gives verbal consent before entering his data by his physician and inviting him by the physician to use the tool. This followed by an explicit informed consent for processing his data and using this data for the research purpose. The main lesson learned in this project can be summarized as follows. The GDPR implementation into the national law of the EU member state can lead to different implementation through the different European Union member states. So, the digital health provider should consider this variation in implementation while deploying their apps in a wider scale across Europe. We also need to unify and harmonize this GDPR implementation across Europe. GDPR compliance in digital health requires proper integration between the legal and technical aspects, and our toolkit can support in this regard. Finally, the APT GDPR compliance activity was conducted through the CODES project funded by the Ludwig Boltzmann Gesellschaft. We also like to thank our healthcare providers of the Sports Medicine Institute for their patience, passion, and support while implementing the tough stuff of GDPR compliance process. Thank you, and I will be more than happy to receive your comments and questions.